And wouldn't you know it, on our bingo sheet, that's a 2-for-1. We get childhood trauma justifying bad actions, and we get questionable LGBT rep. Wow, we have checked off so many of these. Oh my God. Not a good time because it wasn't good, but it wasn't a horrendous time. It was mostly just a confusing time. Genuinely, I don't know what's happening anymore. I feel like this has been a fever dream. Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is Read, Rant, Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. Today, I am excited, might be the wrong word for it, but I'm excited to tell you about the book Without Merit by the infamous Colleen Hoover. Without Merit is a book that was published in 2017. This is one of her earlier pieces of work, and as of filming, it is currently sitting on Goodreads at a 3.67 with almost 300,000 ratings, so definitely one of her least known, which is the reason I wanted to do a rant review on it. I feel like there's so many for Layla and Verity and, November 9, Ugly Love, It Ends With Us, all of her really popular ones, which I would love to talk about also because they're crazy, but her older work is also crazy and I feel like needs equal attention. So that's what I'm here for today. If you are unfamiliar with what Without Merit is about, let me just read you the back of this real quick. The Voss family is anything but normal, from the irritatingly perfect older siblings to the little half-brother who isn't allowed to do or eat anything fun. Then there's Merit. She collects trophies she hasn't earned and secrets her family forces her to keep. While browsing the local antiques shop for another trophy, she meets Sagan. He's witty, idealistic, and sparks renewed life into her, until she learns that he's completely unavailable. Merit retreats deeper into herself, watching her family from the sidelines when she learns a secret that no trophy in the world can fix. Fed up with the lies, Merit decides to shatter the happy family illusion that she's never been a part of, leaving them behind for good. But when her escape plan fails, Merit is forced to deal with the staggering consequences of telling the truth and losing the one boy she loves. To be honest, that's the first time I've read that, especially after finishing this book. We'll get there. We'll unpack that. Before we get into the video, I do have the same 3 disclaimers that I have on all of my videos. The first one being, this review is not for Colleen Hoover. It's not for fans, friends, family, stans, anything of the like. This is truly a Colleen Hoover hater account, so if you love her, I love that for you, but I'll catch you in the next one. The second disclaimer is just letting you know that this will contain all of the spoilers. My rant reviews are beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdowns of the books. I will be doing that today with Without Merit. So if you would like to actually read this book, again, click off the video. I'll catch you in the next one. And then the third disclaimer that I have is a content or trigger warning. Let's see, was one provided by the author? Okay, I was trying to look for a trigger warning, which there's not one provided in the book, which for Colleen Hoover, that is not a surprise in any way. What I did find was a dedication. This book is for Cole Hoover, because I'm your mother and I love you. I sometimes have an overwhelming urge to wrap you in a bubble and protect you from the world. But I also have an overwhelming urge to wrap the world in a bubble and protect it from you, because you're going to turn it on its head someday. I can't freaking wait. I just would like for you to keep that dedication in mind as we unpack the insane family that is depicted in this book, okay? Without a content or trigger warning provided by the author, what I would like to note is just 3 of the possibly triggering content that I want you to be aware of before we get into this. The first one is that inappropriate relationships between family members is depicted in this. Not horrifically, and I'm especially going to be skimming it over in this, but it is not consensual, and it's a big plot point in this book, actually. It kind of feeds into these other things that I wanted to warn you about, which would be depression and an attempt at self-unaliving. I'll give you a heads up once we get to that specific chapter, but just so we're all aware, I will skim over as much as I possibly can. I will keep it pretty light here. I'm just trying to have a good fucking time and let you know about the craziness of the story. I'm not going to try to make this a bummer in any way, okay? I just want us all to be aware of what's happening. Now for the fun stuff of the video. I will be taking off my makeup here in a second and redoing it with you guys today just to give me something to do with my hands as I tell you about this book. And secondly, I have reviewed Too Late by Colleen Hoover and Reminders of Him. And in doing so, I created a Colleen Hoover bingo sheet. In parentheses, I would call this derogatory. Her books tend to have the same things mentioned again and again and again and again and again. So I made a bingo sheet. I will put up a picture of it if you want to take a screenshot of this and play it on your own sometime. But if you are listening to this, I will read it aloud to you. And we'll play bingo as I tell the story, okay? Virgin, incest, insta-love, miscommunication, cheesy inside joke, a love triangle, scene that involves minors for no reason, cancer, questionable LGBT rep, a dead parent, the main character dies, stuck in the house scene, stupid names, surprise pregnancy, questionable mental health representation, quirky not like other girls description, childhood trauma justifying bad actions. The main male character is abusive toward the main female character. There's a SA scene. Drama when a rival love interests learn about each other. The main female character moves in with the main male character. Someone dies. Main male character is creepily obsessed with the main female character. Unaliving. Self-unaliving is mentioned and or referenced, and the main male character, quote unquote, saves the main female character. Even reading that out to you now, we're gonna have a couple bingos. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm looking forward to this actually. So I'll probably put up I'll put it in the corner maybe and we'll play the game. So our book opens with us meeting our main female character. Her name is Merritt Voss. So we can go ahead and check off the stupid names on our bingo list. Merritt Voss is a 17-year-old high school senior who is currently skipping school as per usual and shopping at a thrift store, antique store thing, trying to find a trophy. Yes, like a sports trophy or valedictorian, anything like that sort of thing. She collects these just for fun. Like whenever she goes through something in life, she just goes to the thrift store and finds some goofy, completely unrelated trophy and takes it home and puts it on her shelf. And that's how she celebrates these different events that happen to her. I don't know, don't look at me. So when she's at the thrift store, she's like walking around, she finds this one particular trophy that she wants, but it's pretty expensive. And when she goes back to try and get it off of the shelf, she ends up breaking a pig figurine or like a pig statue or something, and she has to pay for that. So she's not able to get this trophy that she wants. She has to get like a cheaper, crappier one. And hey, I promise that's relevant later, okay? As she's walking around the store kind of pouting about having to get this other trophy, she runs into a guy. We find out later his name is Sagan, S-A-G-A-N, okay? Runs into Sagan, and he is so cute. Like, she's instantly attracted to him, and he is flirting with her. Like, they are just, like, hitting it off like crazy. Really something happening between them, and she goes to leave, he follows, and ultimately, they end up in the park outside, and they end up kissing. She's like, oh my God, this is the best kiss ever. This guy is so cute. I can't believe we're hitting it off like this. This is amazing. And as they're making out, he gets a phone call from her twin sister, Honor. Honor and Merritt are twin sisters. And Sagan is what Merritt assumes is Honor's boyfriend, and he mixed them up. And that's why he kissed her thinking that she was her sister. Oh my God, what a start to a book. In chapter 2, Honor, the sister, is calling Merritt. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe Sagan. He's not picking up. She's like, oh, I don't know why you would be doing that. That's so weird. Completely trying to play this off. When she ran away, swore Sagan to secrecy. She's like, we cannot tell anybody what just happened between us. Like, that is so embarrassing and so horrible and blah, blah, blah. We're not telling anybody. He's like, okay, I guess. And as Merritt and her sister are on the phone and they're talking about Sagan and how he's ignoring her, all Merritt can think of is, I don't even know why they're dating. Sagan seems like he's healthy, and my sister, her relationships border on necrophilia. What? So her sister, 2 years ago, dated a guy named Kirk, and Kirk had, I think, cancer or a brain tumor, and ended up passing away. And so now the sister, since this whole Kirk situation, has only dated terminally ill boyfriends. And Merritt thinks that this is terrible. Merritt is obviously like, oh my God, you sicko pervert. That's so weird. And also, again, Sagan seems healthy, so I don't understand why they would be dating. Like, that's so strange. But she presses on, she drives home, and when she gets home, we learn a lot about this crazy freaking family. The Vosses, V-O-S-S, like the water. The Vosses live in a place called Dollar Voss. It is a repurposed church, like church turned house. So the Vosses lived behind the church, and the pastor who owned the church and lived in it, whatever, had a dog named Wolfgang who was really, really annoying and barked all the time. So eventually, Merritt's father went and pulled some crazy shenanigans and was able to purchase the church. So now they own both pieces of property. The family all lives in this like repurposed church as their house. Okay. And so we have Merritt and Honor, the twins, their older brother, Utah, who is only like 8 months older than them or something. So they're all in the same grade at school. Like they're all seniors in high school at this point. Merritt and Honor being notably 17, Utah being 18. And then their father, Barnaby, yes, B-A-R-N-A-B-Y, Barnaby. And then their mother, Vicky, also lives in the house, but she lives in the basement. She has some mental health issues, some cancer, some agoraphobia, some crazy stuff going on with her. That means that she doesn't leave the basement, which is great for her father because he is now married to another woman named Victoria. What? So I'm gonna have to put up a little table. I'm gonna put up a little chart of characters so we can all keep this straight, okay? Right? The twins, their older brother, all with stupid freaking names. Their parents, Barnaby and Victoria, who goes by Vicky. And then the new family is the new wife, and then the stepbrother named Moby. Moby's like 4 years old, okay? They all live in the same house, all 7 of them. But the mom, who goes by Vicky, is not banished to the basement, but she isolates herself in the basement. I don't know, don't look at me like that. Again, we're off to a crazy start. It's Colleen Hoover. What do you expect? The only other thing to note is that we do learn of the pastor's name. It's Pastor Brian. Like I said, he's the one who used to live there with a dog named Wolfgang, who used to bark all the time and really, really annoy the dad. And what is left of the church is there's a marquee out in the front. That is the big sign in front of the church that changes every, week or so with different cute sayings or announcements of or the different service times are. So the marquee is left. They have a couple stained glass windows that they left. And then there's also a giant 8-foot tall statue of Jesus Christ that they left in essentially the living room. And then the church is divided into different like living quarters, and then obviously the basement where the mom lives. It's just kind of weird. It's a very weird setting. It's very unique. We won't question it too much, okay? The one thing that we do want to talk about in this is that the older siblings are pretty sure that Victoria, the new stepmom, used to be their mother's oncology nurse, and that's how their father met her, and that's how their affair began. Okay, just something to note. And obviously there's a lot of resentment toward Victoria because of this. So that night after getting home, Merritt is really upset about kissing her sister's boyfriend, not necessarily feeling guilty about it in any way, but she's just upset that she met this guy that she was really into and then found out that she can't have him because he is Honor's boyfriend, right? So she takes some NyQuil to force herself to go to sleep, and obviously does. She passes out, and she just continues to reflect about how much of an outcast that she feels like from her own family members. She just doesn't feel like she belongs. And then in chapter 3, Merritt is going around the house and she's realizing Sagan is there more and more, and she doesn't like it, obviously, because she's attracted to him and she's embarrassed and jealous and feels bad, and she doesn't really know what to do with all of these feelings. And one of the things that makes her have these feelings about him is that he is an artist, and so he draws all the time, and he draws pictures of Honor, and then Merritt will steal them because Honor doesn't appreciate it, and put them in her room and pretend that Sagan drew them of her, not her sister. Oh, okay. And in the midst of this, Merritt comes to the decision that she's not going to talk anymore. Her family doesn't listen to her when she speaks, and so she's like, okay, well, I'm not going to talk, and that way, whenever I do, it's going to really, really matter, and people are going to know that they should listen to me, and that's the only way that my family is ever going to, actually respect me or respect anything that I have to say or that I have to add to conversations. Which is horribly sad. And the worst part is that nobody even notices that she stops talking. The only person who notices and says anything or even acknowledges her silence is, of course, Sagan. Because as much as, he's Honor's boyfriend, he really has an eye out for Merritt and really gives her a lot of attention. And, she catches him looking at her, and just, there's something there. The following morning, Merritt is having breakfast with the siblings, and she's realizing how much more she likes Moby than she does her own twin, and that Honor and Utah, that's the name of their older brother, are more like twins than she and Honor are. Utah and Honor finish each other's sentences, and they have their own inside jokes and all this other stuff, and Merritt and Honor really haven't been close since the whole boyfriend's death thing that happened 2 years ago, and Merritt and Utah haven't been very close since he forcibly kissed Merritt when she was 12 years old and he was 13. We'll figure out why later. It does get discussed. I'm not saying it's justified because there really is no justification for that type of behavior, but it sure does try. It sure does try to excuse such a thing in a really gross way. Merritt then goes on to discuss how they're high school seniors, they'll be going to college next year, but Merritt doesn't plan on going to college. Like, she's not even going to school right now. Like, she's been skipping class constantly, and she just doesn't want to go to school. She doesn't care. She doesn't think that there's anything there for her to learn about, and she thinks that it's a giant waste of time. And again, none of her family members, none of her friends, nobody even notices that she's gone. And it really feeds into, ultimately, this depression that she has brewing within her because nobody pays attention to her. And it is genuinely actually very, very sad. It's in this chapter, too, that we learn that Vicky, the mother, has not left in 2 years. Like, she has not left the basement of the house since Kirk died. Honor's boyfriend with the terminal illness, you know? Like, she went to the funeral after Honor absolutely begged and cried and pleaded over it. And that's the last time that she's left. Otherwise, she's just been downstairs. And we learn that this agoraphobia stemmed from a car accident that she was in when she was pregnant with the girls. Later on during a thunderstorm, Merritt is awake in her room. She finds solace in the peace and quiet and really just sleeps all day, skips school, and then will stay up all night. So she's awake during this thunderstorm, and she hears a dog scratching at the back door. And when she goes to open it, it's Wolfgang, the dog that the preacher used to own. So she's like, okay, well, maybe he just got scared and ran home, like, and he just doesn't know where his new home is, so he came here. Like, the next morning when she goes to try and return Wolfgang to Pastor Brian, she finds out that Pastor Brian is dead. Oh my God. And Merritt feels bad for Wolfgang the dog, not really for Brian. She's like, Brian kind of deserved it. He was kind of an asshole, but I feel really bad for this dog that's left all alone. And she decides to essentially adopt it without telling her parents what's going on, especially her dad, who hates this dog, right? Merritt tells her family about Pastor Brian's passing. They all are very, very surprised about it, and there's a little bit of discussion of if they should update the church marquee to acknowledge his death. Like, the whole town kind of thinks that their family's a bunch of freaks. They're not wrong. Thinks that they're a bunch of freaks, though. And they're like, okay, so either we acknowledge Pastor Brian's death and people think that we might be joking and we look like assholes, or we don't acknowledge it and we definitely look like assholes. And they leave it up to Utah, the older brother, to decide what the marquee will say that day, and he changes it to some random fact about flamingos. So I guess we aren't too concerned about what the people think. In chapter 4, the following day, Merritt decides that she's going to go to the pet store to get some food for Wolfgang because she feels bad and she needs to feed the poor thing. And while she's there, she meets a freaking crazy guy named Luck. Luck. Like, good luck. The names do not stop. Luck has a mysterious, potentially Australian accent that also doesn't really sound Australian, but kind of sort of does. And he is asking her way too many questions, and he has a bag of beef jerky and a bunch of other just bags with him, and he kind of looks homeless, and he kind of doesn't look like he knows where he's going, and his stories are really, really weird and not adding up. But he's kind of cute. He's kind of flirting with her. I could read this portion to you so you could understand how cringy and horrible that this section was to read. But I don't think I want to put myself through that, let alone you. So by the end of it, she's like, okay, dude, just get in the car. I'll give you a ride to wherever you're going. He gets in. He's like, well, I'm going to my sister's house. She's like, okay, where does your sister live? He says, I don't know. I need to get to my sister's house. It's so awkward and weird. Ultimately, he ends up pulling up a photo of his sister's house to show her, and he's like, this is where I need to go. Can you guess where it is? It's to the church, Dollar Voss. His sister is Victoria, her new stepmom. So then she's like, oh shit. Drives him to the place, doesn't tell him who she is or that she knows Victoria or anything. Instead, pulls up to the house, unloads the dog food that she had, walks into the house, and he's like, hey, WTF, like, you just had to drop me off. You don't have to do like all this other stuff. Like, this is kind of weird. She's like, I'm not, I live here. Finally drops the bomb, who she is and that she knows Victoria. And he says, so that makes me your uncle? Step uncle. I walk through the front door and toss the bag of dog food onto the floor. Luck stands in the doorway as he runs a hand through his hair and then grips the back of his neck. I already pictured you naked, he mutters. Now would be a good time to stop doing that. So she's 17. He's 20. They know each other's ages, and he still says that. And that's not the last time. The other pink tab that I have highlighted a little bit later, he says, I'll read it to you now. We'll get ahead of ourselves. She's saying something and he says, stop that. It's unattractive. Good. You aren't supposed to be attracted to your niece. Keep that self-deprecating attitude up. You'll have nothing to worry about. Ew. Why? Why? Anyway, so he's like, oh my God, you're my niece. That's so crazy. Is my sister here? She says, no, I don't know where the hell she is actually, but she's not here. He's like, let me show you to the guest room though, so you can at least put your bags down and get some rest. When she opens up the guest room door, it is filled with stuff. It's filled with Sagan's stuff. Sagan moved in with them, and she didn't even notice because she has been isolating herself in her bedroom for like weeks now and hasn't been talking to her family, but then wants to act surprised when she doesn't know what's going on in her household. So she takes Luck to her father's office so he can at least put his stuff down there and like take a nap on her father's chair. And then she goes back into Sagan's room, the guest room, and starts snooping around, looking at his various art that he has, a bunch of different stuff. Sagan comes in, catches her snooping, confronts her about it, and she just runs out of the room crying, not understanding why she is so emotional about this. And is so distraught by Luck and Sagan and living there and all this family drama that she ends up praying to God, which is the first time that she has ever really done that. Like, her family is very not religious, which is, again, kind of a funny part of them living in a church, is them not being very religious. And ends with her just not really feeling any better about the situation, but she's like, at least I tried, I guess. She ends up passing out, hoping to sleep for the rest of the day, but her sister ends up waking her up at 6 p.m. and her sister's like, hey, it's your turn to bring mom food. The kids take turns on who goes downstairs to give their mom dinner and bring her things, and it's Merritt's turn. So when she goes down there, her mom confesses, she's like, hey, I know that you've been skipping school. They've been calling me. I just told them that you've been sick or whatever, but we have to maintain this illusion that I'm not agoraphobic and stuck in the basement. Like, everybody thinks that we're just normal operations. So just keep lying for me. Let's all just keep pretending that everything's okay. Okay, Merritt? And Merritt's like, I guess, like, you're doing me a solid about the whole school skipping thing, but also our life's a fucking mess. Like, this is terrible. You shouldn't be asking me to lie for you. And Merritt leaves, reflecting how upset she is and how much that she wishes that her mom would just have a part in her life, and how disappointed she is that her mom has just never really been in their lives. She just wishes that she had a normal family and a normal mom and everything like that. Merritt goes upstairs then to have dinner with the rest of the family. Between all the bickering and the arguing and talking crap, in the middle of this argument with Victoria, Merritt brings up the fact, she's like, oh, well, like, you abandoned your brother. Like, you abandoned your brother Luck. Victoria is like, how in the hell do you even know that man's name? Like, who have you been talking to? What is even happening right now? She's like, yeah, he's literally in Dad's office. Like, he's here. She starts to freak out because she and her brother are not on good terms. Like, and wouldn't you know it, like, literally right at that moment, Luck walks through the door and he's like, hey, sis, in his weird Australian accent. Victoria starts freaking the fuck out, saying that she wants him out of there, that he shouldn't be there, going on and on about how terrible of a person that he is. And he's like, whoa, sis, like, you're not even hearing anything I have to say. Barnaby, the father, steps in at some point and he's like, hey, let's take this outside, guys. Like, let's go to the other room and talk about this. We don't need to have this discussion in front of the kids. They go off to have their conversation, and now it is just the kids now, I guess, counting Sagan. We have the twin girls, Utah, Sagan, and Moby. Eventually, Merritt also feels awkward, and so she's like, okay, Moby, let's go to bed. Like, I'll read you a story. So she takes Moby to bed, and Moby wants to hear the story about perspective. She's like, I don't know that one. What are you talking about? It turns out that it is a short children's story that Sagan wrote Moby. She's like, whoa, this is so crazy. I feel like I can read this and feel like I'm close to him. Like, I can understand him a little bit better. Very excited to read it. And when she does, however, she realizes this is kind of freaky weird. It's pretty extreme. So the story is that of a king who lives in a town called Perspective, and he tells all of his subjects, his people, to build him a castle. He goes away. When he comes back, he doesn't see a castle, so he orders all of those people to be unalive. And then at the very end, after they're all unalived, one of the survivors is like, hey, they built you a castle, but it's in the mountain. He goes through the mountain cave. There's a huge opening. His castle is there and it's beautiful. And he's like, oh my God, I killed all of my people. We have to keep this covered up. And it's an important reflection or story or lesson about perspective and the importance of having it and not jumping to conclusions. That is a through line throughout the entirety of this book, is learning different perspectives and being a better person when you can put yourself in other people's shoes. Interesting, especially coming from Colleen Hoover, but okay. Once she's done reading the story, she goes back out to the kitchen. The other teenagers are hanging out in there, and they're about to go to the hotel to go swimming. There's a hotel down the road that has like an indoor heated pool that they're gonna go to. They invite Merritt. She doesn't want to go, but Sagan's like, hey, like, you should really come. Wink, wink, nod, nod. She's maybe possibly gonna say yes. And then the parents come back in with Luck, and they're like, hey, your uncle, step-uncle, stunkle, he's gonna be staying here for a while, so like be nice to him and get used to it. Again, they don't really have a choice, so they're like, okay, I guess. And they invite him to go to the pool as well. When it's decided that he'll go, Merritt decides that she'll go as well. And that earns them a little bit of a side eye from Sagan, which means we have checked off yet another box on the bingo. So let's check off where we are so far. Incest. Yes. Insta love? Yes. Cancer? Yes. Scene that involves minors for no reason? I'm going to go ahead and say yes on that one in advance because she's 17 years old. A love triangle? Yes. The uncle, Sagan, and Merritt, right? Quirky, not like other girls description? I'm going to say yes because of the trophies on that one. MFC moves in with MMC. I'm going to go ahead and check that one off because technically Sagan did move in with Merritt. That's close enough. And I think that, and questionable mental health rep. We'll wait for that one, but we'll go ahead and say yes because of the whole mom's agoraphobia thing that's going on in the basement. I don't see that going well at all. I don't know about you. Doesn't seem like it's going well. We go into chapter 6, and Merritt just cannot stop thinking about Sagan and Honor and their relationship and how jealous that she is of this situation. Truly believing that her sister is just wasting time with Sagan until she meets a terminally ill guy for her to, like, you know, jump his bones. Sounds terrible. But it's kind of like what she's thinking. She's like truly just doesn't believe that her sister has like a good bone in her body and that her sister just has like this weird thing to get off to sick guys. It's very strange. And also just a very strange thing to think of your sister, but that's okay. Because even when they're sisters, there still has to be misogyny and women pitted against each other because, again, God forbid we actually do like character development and stuff. So when they're at the pool, Merritt wears a t-shirt. And Honor is obviously wearing like an actual bikini. And all that she can think about is how awkward she feels. And she doesn't understand how her sister has so much more sex appeal than she does. And as she's reflecting on all of this, her uncle, Luck, comes swimming over to her and he says, hey, why aren't you wearing a bikini? Like, are you embarrassed? Blah, blah, blah. Is it because you're a virgin? And then ends up talking to her uncle about her being a virgin, which is so freaking weird. And if you happen to be watching this, I just like absolutely shit the bed with my makeup. So this is not going well. I have a new makeup palette, and so I'm not used to the pigmentation of it and the blendability, and it is something else. So I'm struggling right now, so don't mind me. In addition to being creepy and hitting on her, Luck also gives her a little bit more information about he and Victoria's relationship. Primarily that, yes, they're siblings, but they grew up in different households. Like, they didn't actually grow up together. And that's kind of a point of contention between them. And that's why Victoria's a little kind of off-put by him. Eventually, they all kind of slowly trickle out of the pool and are getting ready to head home. And it ends up just being Sagan and Merritt in the pool, and Sagan reveals that he is not romantically involved with her sister. Like, he is not actually dating Honor. And Merritt, for some godforsaken reason, does not want to believe this. She's like, no, I saw the way that you guys looked at each other, and instead chooses to believe they're dating. They're just not like official. Like, Honor just doesn't want to make it official with him. Why? I don't know, I guess to keep the drama of the situation going. She goes on to ask Sagan about his family. You know, she's kind of bitching about hers, and she's like, well, what about yours? He says, it's kind of a depressing story. I don't really want to talk about it. And they move on. As they leave, they find Luck having casual intercourse with the receptionist at the hotel. Oh, okay. In chapter 7, we're back at the Weird Family Church, and Luck pulls Merritt aside, and he says, hey, Sagan likes you, dude. Like, I know you have a crush on him. They've had that that conversation kind of in passing. He's like, I know you have a crush on him, but he definitely has a crush on you too. Like, you should do something about it. She decides to change the topic and she's like, hey, Luck, how many people have you slept with? And then he pulls out a notebook where he tracks these encounters. He's had dozens of sexual partners and hundreds of sexual encounters. Merritt's just disgusted by this though and goes on to change the topic. I don't know, dude, don't ask me. So then he goes on to tell Merritt, like, the first time sucks. Like, the first time that you'll ever actually do anything, it's absolutely horrible. And you should just, like, get it over with. It's not that big of a deal. Merritt then goes downstairs to help her mom, I think give her like more dinner or give her some medication or something. And Merritt pockets some of her mother's medication. Uh-oh. When she goes up to her room, she has a picture from Sagan, right? He's doodling, he's drawing all the time. And so one of the photos that he left for her in her room was Merritt at the bottom of a pool tied to a cinder block with the caption, coming down for air. It disturbs Merritt, but she's also like, that's kind of cute though, and he was thinking of me. And so she hangs it up on her wall, even though she's creeped out by it and yells at him for drawing it. In chapter 8, Merritt is disappointed that her dad hasn't noticed that she's not going to school. She's like, what the fuck, dude? Wouldn't you know it? Right as she's thinking that, she's walking around the house. It's during a school day. Obviously, she's actively skipping school. And she sees her dad come up from the basement looking a little disheveled. She's like, oh my God, you freaking scandalous bastard. First you cheat on our mother with her cancer nurse, and then now you're cheating on your current wife with our mother? What? She goes downstairs and her mom is actively like zipping up her dress and the bed's not made. So she's like, wow, you guys are really just over here doing that. She's so upset. So then she goes on to say like, oh mom, like, you're only living in this house so that you can try to get back with dad, and you're trying to sabotage he and Victoria's relationship. And yeah, I don't like her, but also like, you can't just be sleeping with people's husbands, and like, you're a terrible person. And the mom's like, hey, you can't talk to your mother that way. Merritt says, you haven't been my mother for 6 years. Wait, so has she not been locked away since the accident? What does that mean? Does that mean since they got married she's been trapped in the basement? I thought she's been trapped in the basement since you guys were born. I don't know what's happening. What I do understand is that later that night she feels conflicted about telling Luck and Honor about the whole situation with her dad, and instead she pulls Luck aside and she asks him more about sex, and he reiterates the whole it doesn't really mean that much, and she asks him to take her virginity, her step-uncle. He says yes at first because obviously he's attracted to her, as noted previously. Ew. And then he changes his mind last second when he's looking at her and realizes that she looks like Moby, the little kid. What? Okay. So then when he goes to leave her room and go back to his and just kind of like get over this awkward encounter that happened between them, he runs into Sagan in the hallway, and Sagan gives them some like side eye of like, wow, really? A little bit later, her dad approaches her and he's like, hey, we kind of need to talk about what happened earlier. She says, oh, about how you're cheating on Vicky with her mom? He says, Merritt, keep it down. She says, oh, I see. You don't want to discuss why you're a pathetic husband. You just want me to promise that I won't tell anyone. And she's like, I have to go feed the dog. And that's how she gets out of the situation. And when she goes and approaches Wolfgang, Pastor Brian, the dead guy's dog that she took in, she goes to feed Wolfgang, and Wolfgang is kind of sickly and not eating, and they don't really know what's going on. And Sagan comes out and he says, hey, I'll take Wolfgang to the vet tomorrow, and like, we'll see what's happening. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry that the dog is sick. And Merritt just starts crying. She's like, I don't even really like the dog. I don't even know what's happening. I just have a lot of emotion. And she just gets teary. Sagan and Merritt then go on to like have more discussion about family, and he reveals that he has a little sister that he hasn't talked to in a long time, and she's like, I wish I was closer to my sister, and I wish that I was closer to Utah. And Merritt confesses that she feels stuck in a family where people just keep making mistakes and never actually fix anything or acknowledge that they have problems at all. And Sagan's like, hey, people mess up, but everybody deserves forgiveness. And she says, I don't have enough forgiveness to offer my family. Like, they're so screwed up. I don't think she's wrong necessarily. There's a lot happening, a lot of really horrible stuff happening here. But Sagan then goes on and he's like, hey, did you actually like do it with Luck earlier? Merritt doesn't answer. She's like, hey, that's an inappropriate question, and then instead just storms off. And Honor, not knowing any different, not knowing about any of this weird stuff that's going on, she approaches Merritt and she's like, hey, can you lie for me? I'm gonna sneak out and go and visit a guy in a hospital. Oh my God. So she's like, oh my God, my sister's a cheating whore too. She's cheating on Sagan. She's just sleeping around with sick guys now. What is happening to my family? Like, everything is so ridiculously insane. In chapter 9, she is lying for her sister and telling, you know, Sagan and Luck and her father that Honor is feeling sick and just gonna hang out in her room that night. And instead, Merritt goes into Honor's room and is trying on like a sexy nightgown of hers when Sagan comes in. And then Merritt's like, oh no, I snuck into her room and I'm trying on her clothes. I'm just gonna play it off. And decides that she's gonna go up and try and kiss Sagan and try and play along as this whole like girlfriend thing and feed into the old twin switcheroo and be her sister. And so she goes in to kiss Sagan and Sagan's like, yo, what the fuck? Realizes that it's Merritt pretending to be Honor trying to kiss him. And he says, hey, you're being an asshole. I told you I'm not dating your sister. This is really inappropriate. You were going to take advantage and pretend to be your sister to kiss her boyfriend? That kind of makes you a piece of shit, dude. What are you thinking? Merritt starts just crying and runs out of the room. So in chapter 10, this chapter is where she tries to unalive herself. So this is your trigger warning for this chapter. I'll have chapter 11 noted in the time bar below if you need to skip over, okay? It's not terrible, but it's still, if it's something that is concerning for you, okay? Protect your peace always. After Sagan calls her an asshole, she finds a bottle of tequila, she chugs it, and then she goes to try and talk to Luck. And when she opens up Luck's bedroom door, he is having sex with Utah. Yeah, the older brother. Now the step-uncle is effing one of the other kids. He's 20, okay, and Utah's at least 18. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Like, at least he's of age, whatever. But step-uncle, that's still a factor. And also, he was literally just trying to sleep with the sister. So, like, okay, all right. Colleen, how do you even come up with this shit, honey? I'm concerned. Genuinely, I'm concerned at this point. So Merritt feels rejected coming from the situation. She's like, wow, like, you're gonna sleep with him but not with me? Like, I feel extra gross now. Like, nobody wants me. And then ends up in this, like, a self-hatred spiral, right? Thinking like, oh, nobody even noticed that I was gone from school. I betrayed my sister. I'm super ashamed of everything. And also reflecting on Utah molesting her when she was 12, right? Kissing her. It's just bad. And so she's like, okay, I can't keep my family's secrets anymore. And so to quote unquote cope with this situation, she takes a bunch of her mother's pain pills, drinks 3 more beers, and is trying to unalive herself. In the process of doing so, she decides, I can't keep my family's secrets anymore. I'm gonna write it all out. It ends up being like 4.5 pages of the book, but I'm going to read it to you in its entirety because it gives a great summary of what this book is and all the issues, and I haven't read you anything else, so I figured I might as well give you this one gift, okay? Dear inhabitants of Dollar Voss, every last one of you, except Moby. He is the only one I like, and I still have respect for at this point. I have so much anger building inside of me, and it has nothing to do with me. It's anger at almost every single person in this house. Anger due to all of the secrets that you've been keeping from each other from the outside world. I refuse to hold on to any of it for one more second. Every day, there are more and more secrets, and I'm tired of looking like the bad guy. You all hate me. You all think that every argument in this house is my fault, and you all wonder why I'm so damn brash all the time. It's because of all of you. Where do I even begin? How about I begin with the oldest secret? Did you think that I would forget Utah? Did you think that because I was only 12 that I wouldn't remember the night you forced me to kiss you? Hey, 12 is like a very reasonable age to have memories. What do you mean? Why would he think that you would forget that? What? Okay, that's fine. It's hard to forget something like that, Utah. If you knew how much I worshipped you as my big brother, you would understand why it's so hard to forget when you did what you did. It's not a big deal, Merritt. That's what you said to me when I shoved you away. You tried to make it seem like I was overreacting to what had just happened. One minute I was in my brother's room watching a movie, and the next minute my brother was trying to kiss me. I ran out of your room that night and never looked back. Not once. I've never been to your bedroom since then. I've never allowed myself to be alone with you since then. And it's like you don't even care. You've never even apologized. Do you even feel guilty? Is that why you find it so difficult to look me in the eye? Because the few times you do look at me with contempt and disgust, the same way that I look at you. All of you think that I'm rude to Utah. You're all telling me to calm down, Merritt. Think about how you would feel if your family tried to force you to be nice to your brother who stole your first kiss from you. You disgust me, Utah. You disgust me, and I'll never forget, and I'll never forgive you. But at least you have Honor. She worships you because she didn't endure the side of you that I endured. She thinks you're sweet and innocent and the best thing to happen to her. She looks at me the same way you do, but only because she can't understand how I can treat you so terribly when you do nothing to deserve it. I know you probably find this all hard to believe, Dad. Yes, I'm speaking to you now, Barnaby Voss. I've said all I needed to say to Utah. You've set the perfect example for us on how to treat each other, haven't you? You created this beautiful family, but as soon as your wife became ill and couldn't satisfy your needs anymore, you slept with her nurse. You couldn't even be discreet about it. Couldn't you have slept with her and then pretended it never happened once Mom got better? No. You had to take it a step further on the selfish scale and screw Victoria without a condom. And now we're stuck with a woman who hates us. A woman who hates our mother. I wonder how Victoria would react if she knew that you were still sleeping with Mom. Yeah, that sentence probably shocked all of you. Sorry, Victoria, but it's true. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. At least we have an explanation now for why our mother still dresses up every day. She lives in your basement hoping her ex-husband will sneak down and pay her a visit, so she keeps her makeup pretty and her hair perfect and her legs nice and smooth. Your husband is probably why our mother still lives in the basement. He's doing so much damage to her mentally that she's under his complete control. He gets you in the bedroom and my mother in the basement, and you're both Victoria, so he doesn't even have to worry about screaming out the wrong name. He's living every man's fantasy. He doesn't even have to worry about the 2 of you overlapping because he's got my mother so doped up on medication that she's too scared to even leave the basement. And don't you think that you're getting off easy, Mother, simply because I feel sorry for you? I liked you more before I knew that you were still sleeping with Dad. At least then I could excuse why you were still here, living in a dungeon, wasting away your life. I thought it was because of your social phobia, but now I know it's because you're playing some kind of sick game trying to win Dad back. Well, guess what, Mom? He's not taking you back. Why would he? You open your legs to him anytime he wants it. You're probably more pathetic than he is. At least he's raising his children. At least he's working to put food on the table and a roof over our heads. He's damn shitty at the whole father thing, but he's a much better parent than you've ever been to us. So yeah, consider this my goodbye. I won't be visiting you in the basement anymore. If you care about any of us, you'll suck it up, get a job, move out, and get a life. Who else? Oh, let's not forget the newest addition to Dollar Voss, Luck Finney. He seems great, doesn't he? Shows up this week, makes up with his sister, and then almost fucks his stepniece. Jesus Christ. Granted, it was my idea to lose my virginity to him. Not like it would have made a difference to him since he's had sex over 300 times. But now that I know he's making his way through all the Voss siblings, I feel even cheaper than I felt after what I'm sure would have been the worst sexual experience in history, had he have been able to go through with it. Maybe he couldn't finish with me because he prefers dick. Utah's dick, at least. Oh, did no one know that Utah was gay? Not that I have anything against anyone being gay. Love is love, right? But I didn't know that about Utah. But yes, Utah is gay and he's sleeping with Luck. I know because I walked in on them. I can't get the image of them out of my head no matter how hard I try. It's embedded there, just like the image of Sagan when he called me an asshole. He was right though. I am an asshole. What kind of person betrays their own twin sister in the worst possible way? Of course, the fact I pretended to be Honor so that I could kiss Sagan wasn't really betrayal, considering Honor and Sagan aren't even a thing. But how was I supposed to know that? He told you. He told you. Okay. Honor doesn't tell me anything. A sister should know who her own sister is dating, but I still somehow get stuck with everyone's secrets, and then you all beg me to keep them from everyone else. Kind of like the one I'm keeping for Honor right now. She's off with some guy tonight, probably naked with him on his deathbed. Can we please address this? Can we please discuss how disturbing it is that Honor is obsessed with the terminally ill? Why is that okay? Why have you not put her in therapy, Dad? Who in their right mind seeks out love from people who are dying? Honor, from one sister to another, please get help. You need it desperately. Who am I forgetting? Moby? I won't even go there. Just someone please save this kid from this family before it's too late. Sagan, I really don't have anything negative to say about you. You're quite possibly the only sane one living in this house. I guess in a way that's your flaw. You actually have the option to leave, yet for some reason you stay with the most screwed up family in Texas. Your family must really suck. Is that why you've never met your own sibling? Because you were smart enough to get as far away as you could? Well, that was fun. I think I feel better now that all your secrets are no longer my responsibility. In the future, keep your shit to yourself because I don't care. I'll say it again in case none of you are getting it. I don't care. Oh my God. She signs off her unaliving note saying without Merritt, it's not going to be here anymore, right? They're going to live without Merritt. Name of the book. She goes on to make a bunch of copies of this note to share it with all of her family members, and then goes on about the whole trying to unalive herself thing. Realizes halfway through that she doesn't actually want to not be alive, and so she tries to make herself puke. It doesn't work, and then she's calling out for help. Eventually Utah comes, he sees her, Sagan comes, he's like, oh my God, call 911. They call the paramedics. The whole family storms into the room and they're like, oh my God, Merritt, what's going on? What's happening? She talks about how she took all of her mother's pills. Sagan makes her throw up, and then the dad says, oh, don't worry about it. Those pills were all placebos. Your mother's not taking any real medication. What the fuck? So the paramedics get there. They still show up, and the next 10 minutes go by in a blur as the paramedics bombard me with questions, check my blood pressure, my oxygen, my eyes, my mouth. It probably wouldn't hurt to let us take her overnight. I hear one of the paramedics whisper to my father, otherwise we'll have to let social services know what happened and they'll have to follow up. My father nods and walks over to me. He kneels down, but before he even says anything, I force out I'm fine, I don't want to go to the hospital. Merritt, I think you should. I don't want to go, I say with finality. He nods. I don't hear what he says when he returns to the paramedic, but the guy squeezes my father's shoulder. They must know each other. Of course they do. It's a small town, and since they know my father, they'll tell their wives, and their wives will tell their friends, and their friends and tell their daughters, and the entire town will know I tried to kill myself with placebo pills. Why is she taking placebo pills? I don't think that's how that would go. If the paramedics are called for unaliving, I'm pretty sure you're like a danger to yourself, and I'm pretty sure you would get like forcibly admitted to the mental hospital, right? Not how that would have happened, What do I know though? So in all of this happening, all of this commotion, everything, everybody's like, okay, seriously, like WTF for these placebo pills? Honor comes from visiting her, like, dying boyfriend guy. She's like, WTF, reads the letter, accuses Merritt of lying about Utah. The dad reads the letter, sees the accusations against Utah, and kicks Utah out of the house. Rightfully so. God forbid I have to actually be happy for that. The bar is in hell. Everybody just continues having all of this drama. Eventually, everybody kind of storms away and does their own thing. But Sagan stays with Merritt, helps her take a shower, taking the razors and medicine out of the bathroom when she goes to take a shower, and just takes care of her. They end up sleeping in the same bed, and Sagan holds her as she cries. Oh my God, dude. In chapter 11, everybody is just going to school and work like everything's totally normal and like nothing happened. And Merritt is thinking, dude, what kind of crazy family do I have that, like, we're just not even going to address what happened last night? I can only imagine the reactions that normal families would have. This is crazy. But her father does come into her room, and he's like, hey, I'm signing you up for some therapy. She's like, I don't actually want to unalive myself. It was just like an impulsive thing last night. I didn't really mean it. He says, cool, real cute answer. You're still going to therapy. She says, y'all need therapy. You guys are all the effed up ones. Did you not see my note? Like, I'm totally normal. He says, don't really care. You're still gonna go. And she still feels like her whole family is blaming her for all of the drama that's happening. Sagan stays with her for the day, and they hang out and talk about life. And we learn a little bit more about Sagan. Mostly the fact that he's 19, lived with his grandma. She passed away a couple years ago, and he is a tattoo apprentice. And when she starts to ask about his parents and the meanings behind the tattoos that he has, he gets super walled off. And instead, he's like, okay, like, let's get out of here. Let's go do something, and distracts her. And they go to the thrift store, and he buys her that really expensive trophy that she wanted to buy on the day that they met. Aww. And then he gets her some sugar cookies, and they go to the bookstore. Aww. In the next chapter, it's really just more Merritt recovering, I guess, from what happened and trying to get back to like what normal means, whatever that is for her. And it's her just spending a lot of time with Sagan and talking things through. He asks if she did it because he called her an asshole. She says, no, not necessarily. It was just a lot of family stuff just compounded over the years. And then she asks Sagan, why did you kiss me when we first met then, if you thought I was on her and you guys weren't actually dating? He's like, I was never attracted to her like that, but when I saw you, I thought that I was seeing a side of her I'd never seen before, and it was so attractive, and so I couldn't help but kiss you. Okay. Sagan really, really wants her, like wants to be in a relationship with her, but ends up kissing her again. It's absolutely great. Merritt is blown away by how amazing this kiss is. And then he says, hey, we can't begin a relationship right now because you're still healing from everything that happened, and I want you to be your own person and figure out who you are on your own before we get together. She's pretty upset about this. She starts crying. She's in her feelings about it. But ultimately, she does realize that Sagan is right. Like, she does need to figure her own life out first. Yay. In chapter 13, Luck, her uncle guy, right? Step-uncle guy visits her and talks to her about his own self-unaliving attempts and how he's depressed and how he takes a bunch of medication. And he drops off a questionnaire about depression so she could take it and see if she was depressed. She checked every single one of those boxes and opens up and tells him about that. But she says, that's not why I tried to unalive myself, though. It was just the alcohol. Luck doesn't argue this, but instead corrects her. He's like, I'm not gay or bi or whatever. I'm actually pansexual. And she's like, oh, sorry, I'm just so inexperienced. Like, I just don't know anything about sexuality. What? You just outed two people in your... Okay. You know what? That's fine. I don't know why we would include such a thing. I don't know why this book exists. Is anybody surprised by that ponderance of mine? At dinner that night, Honor and Merritt get into a fight, like hair pulling, absolutely yelling at each other fight, because Honor says, Merritt, you lying B-word, Utah didn't molest you, because if he was going to choose one of us to assault, it would have been me. What? I don't have any words for that in how fucked up of a sentence that is to say out loud. And in the middle of this argument, Utah comes into the room, like comes into the kitchen and helps break up the fight between the sisters. Like he and Sagan pull them off of each other. And then Utah apologizes. You know, he says, hey, like genuinely, sincerely, he says, I am so sorry for doing that to you. I was bullied in school for being gay. And so I came home to kiss you to try and like cure myself of liking other boys. And wouldn't you know it, on our bingo sheet, that's a 2-for-1. We get childhood trauma justifying bad actions, and we get questionable LGBT rep. Wow, we have checked off so many of these. Oh my God. Utah then again continues to apologize to Merritt, and they promise to be better siblings to each other. Merritt decides that on the marquee outside of the church, she's going to update the message to be something regarding forgiveness, to reflect her feelings toward Utah and how they're going to move on and be better for each other. Yay. Couldn't be me. I hate that. Hey, I'm not going to get into it because that's like a horrible situation. Nope, you're on the shit list for life, my guy. I don't care what your reasoning is. I don't care what you think. I don't care any of the opinions. You can be like, oh, we were just children. I just didn't know any better. No, you did. It's okay. You really did, though. It's fine. It's fine. We're not going to get into it, but you did. And you still need to atone very painfully for the sins that you have committed against someone that trusted you and felt safe with you. As far as I'm concerned, I love revenge. I love justice. I don't love forgiving abusers. Couldn't be me. That's all I'm going to say about that one. So cut to the next scene, and Merritt and Sagan are talking about tattoos, you know, and how Sagan is going to give her one. And she says, yeah, you can tattoo anything you want on me. He says, okay, but like you're not going to see it until it's healed. She says, okay, that's fine. And as he's tattooing her, she asks about one of the tattoos that he has on his body that reads, your turn, doctor. If you are familiar with history, you already get the bad feeling in your gut. If you are unfamiliar with history, I'm just going to read you this next part verbatim, and you'll understand the alarm at reading such a quote. It's a long story, he says, trying to dismiss it again. Good thing all we have is time. He was quiet for so long as he continues tattooing me that I assume he's not going to elaborate, like always. But then he says, remember when I told you the flag on my arm was a Syrian opposition flag? Sorry, I didn't talk about that tattoo earlier. Sorry. Was a Syrian opposition flag? Yeah, you said your father was born there. Yeah, he was, but my mother is American. From Kansas, actually. I was born there. Do you know anything about the Syrian refugee crisis? I've heard of it, but I don't really know much about it. Yeah, they don't really teach it. They don't really teach about it in schools here. Syria has been ruled by a dictatorship for a long time now. It's why my father moved to America for medical school. A lot of other countries around Syria are also ruled by dictators. Well, several years ago, something called the Arab Spring began. A lot of citizens in these countries began to hold protests and demonstrations to try to overthrow the dictators. The people wanted their countries to be less corrupt. They wanted them to run more like a democracy with checks and balances. Their protests were successful in Egypt, and the leaders stepped down. A new form of government was put in place. After that, the people of Syria and other countries were hopeful that it could happen in their countries too. So the tattoo is somehow related to Syria? Yeah, it's what many believe started the revolution. The Syrian ruler, Bashar al-Assad, studied to be an ophthalmologist before his father died, and he took over as the new leader of Syria. Bashar's nickname is Doctor. Well, a group of school kids spray-painted graffiti on the wall at their school with the words, "Your turn, Doctor." They were essentially saying what many in Syria had been quietly hoping, that the doctor would step down, just as the rulers of Egypt and Tunisia had, in order to allow for democracy in Syria. At the risk of sounding stupid, what year did that happen? 2011. Did the doctor step down after that? He did the opposite, actually. He had the children responsible for the graffiti imprisoned and tortured. He had them arrested? He wanted to make a point to the people of Syria that there would be no tolerance for opposition. He didn't care that they were just kids. When the parents started demanding the release of their children, the government didn't listen. In fact, one of the officers in command said to the parents of the children, "Forget your children, just make more children. And if you don't know how to make more, I'll send someone to show you." Oh my God. I didn't say that it would be a good story. And then it goes on to continue to talk about his personal trauma with this uprising. Since then, he hasn't heard from his parents or his sister. And that's why whenever he gets phone calls, it's happened throughout the book, he'll get a phone call and run off and go and answer it, is because he's hoping to God that it's his family, because he doesn't even know if they're alive at this point. Hello? What the Okay. Hey, that is something that should be talked about, right? Should be talked about, acknowledged, learned about, understood by people, but maybe not in the middle of such a book. Maybe not in a book that has won so many bingos on a list such as this. Should we be talking about a horrific situation in the world? Okay, you know what? All right. Do with that information what you will. At the end of this tragic family backstory and revealing of this situation. So in chapter 14, life is just trekking on. Wolfgang, the dog, they go and check on it, and he is looking a lot worse for wear. So they decide that they're going to take him to the vet. Barnaby and Sagan do so. They put him in the car, they take him there, and the dog dies on the way to the doctor. They call Merritt and let her know, and she's just bawling her eyes out, not really understanding why she is so saddened by this animal's death, but it is really messing her up. So she's dealing with these emotions when she gets a follow-up phone call a couple hours later from her dad saying, "Hey, can you and the other kids come and get Sagan and I? We're in jail." What? Chapter 15, Utah, Merritt, Honor, drive to go and pick up their father and Sagan from jail. They had been arrested because they decided that they were going to dig up Pastor Brian and bury Wolfgang, his dog, with him. So obviously they got arrested for disturbing a grave. Hello? What is happening here? During the drive, Honor is like, "Oh my God, I am so embarrassed of you, Dad. The town already thinks that we're a bunch of weirdos. Like, this is literally just going to make it so much worse. I can't believe that you would do such a thing." The dad asks to pull over. He admits that he messed up. Okay, so I realized I just want to read you the part of this book because it is truly worse than I could ever summarize. So if you were wondering, when the dad hops out of the truck, he goes storming off. He says, "Do you want to know why the pills you stole were placebo pills?" I nod because I've been dying to know since I found out. "She isn't in pain," my father says. "Your mother isn't in pain. She isn't recovering from cancer. She never even had cancer. Your mother never had cancer. Let that sink in." Utah says, "You better elaborate because I'm 5 seconds away from punching you." Dad laughs half-heartedly and drags a frustrated hand down his face. His hands then fall to his hips. "Your mother, she has issues. She's had issues since the day that she was in that car wreck. The brain injury, it changed her. She hasn't been the same. I know you guys didn't know her before then, but she was amazing. She was perfect. She was happy. Watching her change from the woman I fell in love with to someone else entirely was the hardest thing that I've ever been through. Harder than trying to take care of 3 kids under the age of 2 by myself when her episodes would hit and she would lie in bed for weeks at a time. It was harder than when she started inventing these illnesses in her head, convincing herself that she was dying. Harder than when I had to have her committed and then lied to you all when I told you she was in the hospital for the cancer she was convinced that she had. She's not the woman I married, and yes, I know it was terrible of me to get involved with Victoria, but it happened, and I can't take it back. And yes, it's terrible now when your mother has rare moments of clarity, because when she does, she realizes what her life has become, what our marriage has become, and it's devastating to both of us. And it's all I can do to hold her and reassure her that I still love her, that I will always love her. He blows out a shaky breath. I do love your mother. I always will. It's just sometimes things don't turn out how you want them to. And even though I'm an atheist, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't thank God. That I don't thank God that I have a wife who understands that. Victoria has lived the past 4.5 years in a house with a woman that I am still in love with. Oh my God, this is so bad. She doesn't question me when your mother needs me. Victoria doesn't correct any of you when you insult her and insinuate that she's a homewrecker. I've never told any of you the truth because I didn't want any of you to judge your mother. But I didn't cheat on your mother when she was dying of cancer. She was never dying. She's not dying now. She's sick, yes, but not in a way that any of us can help her. And then he walks home. What? Okay, anyway. Jesus Christ. This is the worst book ever. Not like in a literal sense, but just in a horrible, like, who are these characters? None of them are likable. They all suck. Every single person in this book sucks. Anyway, back to the video. Thanks, love you, bye. He says, I'm sorry for everything that's happened. And also, your mom never actually had cancer. The whole thing about you guys thinking that Victoria was her oncology nurse wasn't a thing. But I wanted you guys to believe she had cancer so that you would have a higher opinion of her. But really, it was just her degrading mental health after the car accident that led her to stay in the basement. And also, Victoria knows that I still love your mother and that her and I sleep together whenever she's feeling like cognizant and mentally healthy enough to do so. And Victoria's cool with it because obviously Victoria got pregnant, right? So like they decided to get married before the baby was born. That hence the whole divorce and remarry thing, so that Moby was born to married parents, because that's a really big deal. Because if you've read any Colleen Hoover books, she's all about having babies all the time, having babies and getting married for babies all the time. That's just a thing. I don't know. Don't look at me. So what's the placebos for? I don't know. Was Victoria ever her nurse? I don't know. Truthfully, I don't know what's happening anymore. But it's all a lie. So the dad just decides he's going to keep walking home. And now all the kids are in the car and they're all just like, so what do we do now? Life is so weird and dad just dropped a bomb on us and what the hell do we do? And they decide, let's go finish the job. And so they go out in chapter 16. The boys go out and finish burying the dog with Pastor Brian. And Honor and Merritt are just sitting in the car waiting for them to be done with this crazy felony. And they're talking about life. Honor asks Merritt if she's falling in love with Sagan. And Merritt says, yeah, fallen is an understatement. It was more like collapsed, plummeted, crumpled at his feet. Honor says, yeah, I know how that feels. That's how I felt about Kirk. And then when he died, I didn't know what to do, right? Kirk is the one with the brain tumor, her first boyfriend that passed away. She's like, I didn't know what to do. She went on to online message boards for terminally ill people to try and feel something and also to befriend them so that if they died, they could tell Kirk in the afterlife how much she loved him, which might be the saddest damn thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. And that's why she befriends so many terminally ill people. Oh my God. Right? And so then Merritt's like, wow, I'm a judgy bitch. I am so sorry. And hugs her sister and promises that she will be a better and more supportive sister. So maybe Merritt was the problem the whole time. Is what I'm getting from this. When they get home, she goes downstairs to talk to her mother. And long story short, there's some dogs in the backyard. There's 2 little puppies. The mom is like, oh, we should adopt them. And they come to the conclusion that Wolfgang, the dog that just died, that they just buried with Pastor Brian, was actually a girl and died giving birth to these 2 puppies. And so they're like, okay, cool, we'll keep them. But we'll keep them in the old house? Hold on. I'm sorry. What? So... And the mom, Vicky, is immediately like, oh my God, we should keep one. And Honor says, yeah, but like you should move into the old house behind the church and you can have the dog there with Utah. Utah got kicked out of their house earlier for the whole assaulting Merritt thing and moved into the other house. It's so weird. It all goes off the rails in these last couple of chapters, and I don't like anything that's happening and I don't care to understand it anymore. She runs into her father at some point. They embrace, they hug it out, and they're all cool, and they're cool with each other now. And then eventually Sagan shows Merritt her tattoo, and it says with Merritt, right? Because her unaliving note said without Merritt. This one says with Merritt, because she stayed. I don't think I would want my own name tattooed on myself, but that's okay. She's very touched by this and starts crying, and her and Sagan embrace, and she thinks that they're about to kiss, and they don't. She goes on to talk to Luck about the whole depression quiz results and how she really is sad, and she just wishes her life was normal. All of the kids come in the room, and all of them are talking about, what does normal really mean? And are any of us normal? Maybe this is just what life is. She goes on to talk to Sagan a little bit more, and she says, I'm sorry, I'm such an asshole. Like, I really have it good, and I feel so bad for you. And he says, we really shouldn't compare each other's pain. People's pain tolerances are different, and you can't really compare our experiences because we all go through our own things. I mean, you're not wrong, but that's the lesson, I guess, huh? That's the perspective thing? That's what we're supposed to be learning this whole book? I don't know. They talk a little bit more. They end up falling asleep in bed together. And the next morning, Barnaby comes into her room, Merritt's room, sees Sagan and her sleeping in bed together, and he kicks Sagan out. He says, hey, if you want to have a relationship with my daughter, you can't live in this house. That's not appropriate. So now Sagan moves to the other house as well. So now it's Utah, Sagan, and the mom that are going to live in the house, the backyard house, the house behind the house, the church house. I don't fucking know, okay? He'll be nearby, but they'll all live happily ever after now together, sort of. The dad also goes on to say that Merritt is grounded for skipping all this school, and she will be going to school on Monday, and she can't miss another one for the rest of the year. And also that the entire family is going to group therapy. Oh, look at... What? Colleen Hoover having therapy in a book? Oh my God, that's actually crazy. That night, instead of Victoria making dinner like she always does, the girls do, like Merritt and Honor. They cook dinner for everybody, and it's the first happy meal that the family has ever had. And in the middle of dinner, it gets interrupted by the police. And if you've watched the Too Late review by Colleen Hoover, it's not people hired off the internet this time. This is the real police. And the real police say, hey, there was some more disturbances at the grave. Did your kids have something to do with it? The dad says, no, you're wasting your time, man. And they just leave. Who gives a shit? No CPS. No one cares about her unaliving herself. Nobody cares about grave digging. The questionable cancer mom thing. Just a bunch of shenanigans. The random step-uncle guy. I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know what's happening anymore. I feel like this has been a fever dream, but I'm on the last chapter, so let me tell you about it. Sagan invites Merritt to come to the old house to see where Utah, and the mom are living. She's like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Utah has done such a good job remodeling this place. This is wonderful. She's hanging out, and she's having hope over there for the first time that this is all going to be great and her family might actually be okay. And Honor calls her, and she says, hey, Dad's about to be home, you have to come over since you're grounded or you're going to be in trouble. She rushes back over to Dollar Voss, to the converted church house, and she's thinking to herself, oh my God, I'm coming home. This is the first time that I've ever considered Dollar Voss to be more than simply just a house. It's a home. And that's where the book ends. And that, my friends, is Without Merritt by Colleen Hoover. What happened? I don't know. Why did it happen? I know even less. Genuinely. What a weird book. What a weird family. I still don't understand how Colleen comes up with these things. I don't understand the purpose that I was supposed to get out of it. Like I said, other than the whole nobody's really normal. Everybody goes through their own crazy situations, and you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, and everyone's fighting their own demons, or whatever the fuck, I guess. Is the lesson here? Always put yourself in other people's shoes. See it from their point of view. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there is no lesson. Maybe it was just entertainment, which for once didn't involve a bunch of spice. It wasn't inherently abusive, which was also really crazy. This might have been actually the most lighthearted Colleen Hoover book I've ever read, which is an insane statement to make after the craziness that I just told you about, but it really is. That was almost actually just not a good time because it wasn't good, but it wasn't a horrendous time. It was mostly just a confusing time. This might be the first time I've read a Colleen Hoover book that I'm not like so depressed walking away from. I'm just confused. Like, I genuinely just don't know what's happening or why or how or what the purpose of any of it was, but I'm not sad. That's all I have, guys. There's really nothing else to say. What a weird book. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I have memberships now available on this channel as well as Patreon. It's all the same benefits. Just whatever, if one or the other is easier for you. Obviously no pressure, especially if you're watching this far in the video. I appreciate you so much. Your views are more than enough, but just if you want some extra perks and to hang out and show some additional support for the channel, that option is there. I also have a Spotify where all of these videos are uploaded to. The link is in the description box below. And earlier this week of me uploading this video, so on January 27th, 2025, I uploaded my first Spotify exclusive content, which was me reading a short story by Ray Bradbury called The Rocket Man. Oh my god, it's such a good short story. It makes me cry every single time. I'm crying at the end of it, you can kind of hear it. But what is the Spotify exclusive content? Thank you so much for asking. I, if you are unaware, would love to be a voice actor or like an audiobook narrator at some point in my life. Like my goal for 2025 is to land an audiobook narration gig. So I am posting once a month me reading something on Spotify just to get some practice in and some practice with the editing software. This being my very first one, it is not perfect by any means. Like listening to it, I know that there's mistakes and I know there's things that I will do better on next time, but I had to do my first one just to get it out of the way. And that's what this one was. So that is up. Again, in the description box below, if you care to hear a little 30-minute story. And yeah, that's all I have. I think next week, what do I have? I have Wuthering Heights is on the list. I still need to review that. I still need to do a rant review of Evelyn Hugo and another dark romance of some sort. I still have to do the poll for this week and figure out what the heck you guys want to see. The book I'm going to do next week is All Roads Lead Here. It is a age gap romance. She's 33, he's 44. It is the slowest of slow burns. It's like 600 pages long. I'm on page 468. They didn't even kiss until like page 460. Never even smooch. I got 460 pages in, over 70%, almost 80% of the book through before they even kissed, bro. That was the slowest burn romance ever. And that's not a bad thing. It's excessive, it's a little bloated, but it's pretty entertaining. I'm having a good time. I read all of those pages yesterday. Like I couldn't put the book down over the weekend. So if that doesn't tell you anything. Anyway, I'll do one of those 3 books eventually. So you guys have those to look forward to and whatever else I do on the poll this week. So, oh yeah, obviously make sure you vote in my polls. If you're new to my channel, if you go to my posts tab on my profile, I post a poll every Friday, Saturday, whenever I feel like it. Seeing what you guys want to hear me rant review next. So make sure you vote in the polls, make sure you partake in the community stuff. I love to hear from you guys. I love to hear what books you want to see next, getting your input, feedback, whatever. And with that, I think I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.